Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dave's English. I am Dave, and as you know, the last few weeks I've been doing some interviews, and I have another interview today with Evelyn, and her channel is Improve Your English with Evelyn, and I will be linking that below. And actually, throughout the video, you'll see her channel below. So she is from Canada, so it'll be nice to get an American Canadian perspective on things. I mean, overall, the pronunciation for many things will be very similar, but a Canadian can tell an American, and usually an American can tell a Canadian. So we're able to notice these little nuances in the accent. But Evelyn, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you for inviting me. This is exciting.
Awesome. So before we get started into the questions, just tell me a little bit about yourself. So, how did you start getting into teaching English and informing people about English? How did you start your YouTube channel? Yeah, tell me a little bit about your journey and where you're from and whatnot.
Sure. So I'm born and raised in Vancouver, Canada, and I've been at this for a long time. So I come from like an academic background. So I've just always loved English, always loved reading. And in high school, I was really good at it. And so I chose to pursue that as my subject in university. So I got a bachelor's degree in English and then a master's degree. And now I'm finishing up my PhD in English. And in terms of teaching, I started individual tutoring while I was an undergrad. And I just continued to do that and worked as a teaching assistant during my master's degree and during my PhD as well. And now I currently work at a college, and I help a lot of international students. There's a huge international student population in Vancouver. So I have tons of teaching experience and more specifically helping ESL students be able to express themselves better. So that's me. That's a bit about me. Yeah, in terms of YouTube, I started that a year ago, so October 2022, and I just got monetized. So it's all very exciting and all very new for me.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I know how TA ships can take a lot of time and stuff like that, because as some of my students might not know, I got my master's degree in Canada as well, but just on the other side of the country. So I've never been west of Windsor, Ontario. So eventually I'll make it out to BC or Alberta or even Manitoba or Saskatchewan, right? I'd love to go there. Eventually I'd like to travel. I'd like to drive from St. John's and do a drive all the way over to Victoria, just a long car drive across, kind of take some of the routes that famous Canadian Terry Fox took when he was doing his job across, and then go to Thunder Bay where he ended it, and then like kind of continue where he would have gone. So that's kind of like one of my road journey dreams of mine is to do that. So if anyone has seen my videos about, I mentioned Canada in one of my videos. I secretly want to be a Canadian. So there is a point where I am very jealous of you because you are Canadian and I am not. So congratulations on where you were born. So, so yeah. So awesome. So great. So, over the last few videos that you have done, you've really kind of gone, I guess, into my world, which, and it's a world that I didn't expect to get into, to be quite honest, which was this critiquing aspect of it, that here we are, that there are so many videos online when it comes to English. And especially for somebody who is a non-native speaker, it can be really hard to discern between what is good information and what is bad information. And I think that all of this kind of, mixes together, that it leaves a lot of people not knowing, or at least coming to the default that, oh, this person has so-and-so amount, so many subscribers, therefore they must be an authority on the subject, whereas this person doesn't have as many, so therefore they might not know as much or whatever. So we get these inflated subscriber counts that add some sort of legitimacy to then say that the information that they give to people is correct. And I think what's happened with your videos and with mine, and with some other ones as well, is there's starting to be I would say in we are native speakers, but kind of a native speakers perspective on this, because a lot of these videos are, if you want to sound like a native, say this, or don't say this word, say this word instead, which the word will be so obsolete or just would be so esoteric, and really it's just like it's not used except for maybe in certain cases. And I even use the word of heteroskedasticity, which is a term in statistics. Okay, you can learn that term, but you're only going to use it in statistics. And I think like you and I don't know, I mean, from the videos that I've seen that you have done, you and I are kind of critiquing, but it's also, I think we're creating a down to earth kind of environment. It's like there's all these advanced words. It's like, no, we don't use that. Come back down and let's talk about what you're going to do. So how did you get into doing these types of videos?
Well, so it's not really in my nature to create this kind of content. And especially I think when you are an English teacher, it's hard to critique people like that, because like literally my job at the college I work at is to help people to speak better, to write better. And I'm very encouraging, very supportive. So it was difficult for me personally to critique someone's work. And I was always conscientious of like, am I being too hard on them? But the issue is, like you touched upon, that these people have huge followings, like millions of followers, millions of subscribers. And a lot of people don't know better. So they assume, and they assume that the creator is giving the right information, and they trust these people. They believe they're getting accurate information, but they don't know better. So I just kind of felt, after seeing so much of that type of content, that it was kind of time to do it. It was just time to put myself out there and put my spin on it. So I know before you said that this might be maybe a Canadian way of critiquing others. It may be. It's also probably my personality. So I try to be kind, try to be polite, and I try to be fair. So there are other people on YouTube who are critiquing the mistakes of other creators, and maybe in one way maybe being a little bit unfair about it. So I'm conscientious of that, and I think I critique content that I think is highly problematic, and they're mistakes that these people could have avoided had they done a Google search, or had they put a little bit more effort in and just double check things before they hit the post button. So yeah, that's it.
I mean, for me, so I'm in that same boat. For me, one of the things that just kind of grinds my gears a little bit is the definitive nature in which they say this information that I'm going to give you in this video is to be taken as gospel, right? That it is to be seen as that this is what it is. So when somebody says this is how I did a video recently about how native English speakers from the United States speak, and the person in there kept on saying Native American, and every time I did that, I put a video of the Navajo Nation president, which I've been to the Navajo Nation and it's one of my favorite places to go if I ever do my travel vlog. That's like, because I want to teach people about American culture, and like the first place I don't want to go to San Francisco or New York or whatever. I want to go to Navajo Nation, because that to me is like the heart of like America, the real America. Now, if everyone ever talks about the real America, it's that. And I mean, like with First Nations and whatnot in Canada as well. But yeah, I mean, it's this kind of definitive aspect that I don't like. Now, if somebody says, and we'll be talking about this in a video that we're going to do together. So if any of you watching this right now, we have another video on her channel that we're going to be looking at stuff as well. So watch both of our videos. After this one, go over to that one, watch the whole thing, because we're going to talk about that. Yeah, it's this definitive nature of it that just really gets to me. Now, if somebody says, hey, listen, you can say it this way, or here's another way to say it. So people might say this, but there are other ways you can say this as well. Instead of don't say this, say this instead. It goes to creating a rigidness to the language that has a lot of, like all languages have nuance to them. And, you know, and I hear a lot of people tell me, oh, well, native English speakers make mistakes all the time. And it's like, yeah, because it is a fluid thing. It's a language. No, and I'm learning a Native American language right now. And I was watching a video and the guy said, no one has ever spoken their language perfectly, ever in the history of the planet. And that's true. So let me ask you, let's to continue. How important do you think it is to critique these types of videos? Like, what do you think your role is, and how important is it in the whole grand scheme of not just English teaching, but this environment where people are now using things like YouTube, and you're very big on Instagram as well, YouTube and Instagram. I have like 60 followers on it because it's just like my personal one. It's like pictures of state capitals and food. So like, yeah, what do you think? How important is it to critique these videos for you?
I think it's very important. So I'm thinking about it some more. So I think it's been 2 weeks since I posted my first critique video, about 2 weeks. And then, so I've posted 2 in total. And honestly, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. A lot of people are messaging me or emailing me, messaging me on Instagram. And these seem to be people who are, you know, maybe not so sure about their English skills. And they're just so relieved to know, hey, that reel that I watched that sounded weird to me, it turns out, yeah, that person made a mistake. So they feel validated. So because of all of that positive feedback, I think I'm encouraged to make more content like this. And I think it is important because a lot of people, like I said in the video, one of these creators, and I have a video on them exclusively. She has 4 million followers on Instagram. So a lot of people are learning from these sources. And so I think it's important to put out content like the stuff we're creating to just, you know, let people know that this information should not be taken completely as truth. And this is why. So yeah, it's very important, very important. But that being said, I don't want to focus exclusively on critiquing the work of others. So I think I have to find a balance, and I'm doing that as I go.
Right. And I'll admit this, I did want to do that. And I do it to a certain extent. And I've done the videos about, you know, certain grammar rules or whatnot.
Yeah.
And, you know, in even though I feel that I might be giving somebody some good advice, it just gets so buried in the search that no one will ever see it. But if I do a critique video on someone, it is. And again, it's good validation that people get. They're like, okay, like you said, I heard this and it's wrong, but it's wrong. It's wrong for a reason. And I thought it was wrong. And, you know, and I think this happens a lot. And especially now that we're getting a lot of people who do these videos that they just basically they're like, I speak English. I speak English, so therefore I'm an English teacher. And I think that was something that has really, since the pandemic, that's something that really took off. Now, I taught English. I went from working in politics for many years to then going into English teaching, and it was because I wanted to help people. But the one thing I wanted to do is make sure that I was very serious at it. that I knew the rules, I knew how the structure worked, I knew, I can explain what a transitive or intransitive verb is, how that works with a phrasal verb, and if you have a pronoun, blah, blah, blah. Like I want to be able to, if somebody has a specific question, do that. But what happened is we had a proliferation of a lot of so-called teachers who just flooded the market because they didn't have their regular job. And therefore, a lot of them created YouTube channels and Instagram channels and stuff like that. So I think, and especially for us being native speakers, which I think is something we'll touch on, that is a real pressure on us. Or maybe I'll just ask you this right now. And I don't think I put it in the questions, but it's something that we talked about in the email, that we talked about before. Okay. That there is so much, I think, additional pressure sometimes on native speakers of English making these critiques, because one, it can seem like that we're coming across as harsh. And two, that it's almost as if we're not allowed to make mistakes. That I need to listen to every single word, like word by word, when I say something, because I know, hey, if you're critiquing somebody's mistake and you're a native speaker and you make that mistake, there we go. We got you. So like, what do you think about the role? Like, do you feel that you maybe have to tiptoe a little bit being a native speaker when it comes to this? Because I feel that I do. I'm just wondering what you're feeling. I mean, and you work with a lot of people as well. So, I mean, and this is one thing I want to say really quick, is that you and I, we both interact with English students on, a weekly or a daily basis, right? So it's not like we've created a YouTube channel. That's all we do. Like, I think it'd be fair to say for both of us that teaching people English outside of YouTube, that's by and far our main source of just income, our work, and everything. So I think that added experience happens. But sorry for interjecting there, but just go ahead.
Oh no, it's okay. So because this is a new experience for me, and I've been very open about everything, so I have a YouTube video on the whole monetization process for me. I also have a YouTube video on common mistakes that native English speakers make. I have an entire video on that. So it's not like I'm trying to present myself as a flawless speaker. I'm human. I make mistakes depending on what's going on in my life or how I'm feeling that day or whatever. And there have been a few people who've commented on my recent video saying, the argument kind of goes something along the lines of, you shouldn't be critiquing these people. They speak way more languages than you. Native English speakers make mistakes too. Just because you're a native English speaker doesn't mean you're a good teacher. So all of those are there's some valid points there, but so to answer your question, I kind of do feel a little bit like I'm maybe a little bit even more careful now with the content I put out, and I just, triple check and make sure that everything is good and I'm not making mistakes. But I'm never trying to say that I never make a mistake or native English speakers don't make mistakes. And I know the other channel that you focused on your channel, what is it? English
for Everyone?
English for Everyone. It's presented very in an authoritative way. This is the only way things are said. I don't want to present myself in that way. I think that can be equally unhelpful in other ways. So, yeah.
And I mean, I'll even let the cat out of the bag. So I purposely make mistakes during my videos. Because I want people to know that there are, you can make a mistake. So I can say something like, he don't know anything. And we know he doesn't know anything. And some people will pounce on it. But what happens too, and that's fine. I want people to know that. And I do that kind of on purpose because that's how a lot of people will actually speak. So I try to make what I do not necessarily a lesson, but more of a conversation or just me talking to you. So I try and not make it in this definitive manner myself, and because, you know, people will critique that. And
Mhm.
I had thought about doing this video because I did a lot of research, and maybe you know this. You know, I don't know how much you get into the linguistics aspect of it, but I was doing some research as to whether need to can be considered a modal verb or not. And with that, I got into just this rabbit hole of information and finding out all different types of studies that could make one argument that says that it is, and one argument that says that it isn't. And, you know, and just doing the history about just not just a modal verb, but English grammar itself. And like looking at the concept of English grammar, because English grammar isn't created, it's discovered. I mean, it's we all spoke, and then one day, and I think it was 1586, somebody wrote a book about English grammar saying, hey, we notice these commonalities with Latin grammar. And then the concept, like the academic concept of a modal verb, didn't even come out until I think it was 1932. So the concept, the academic concept of a modal verb is not even 100 years old. And so therefore, with it being discovered, whether something is a modal verb or not, really then starts coming down more to the observation of what people think is something. And this is one of the problems sometimes I have with rules is, and I think, oops, I'm going to keep on knocking this thing. This is a new thing I got. So yeah, that's okay. That's how I am in these things. It's just, you know, flying off the seat of my pants. So yeah. Like for example, if there's a future tense in English or not, I think that this is kind of an open debate. So like, to me, I'm like, well, since there's no inflection in the verb to indicate a future tense, to me, it's the context and doing something to say, so my opinion, there isn't a future tense. Whereas then other people say there is a future tense. And I really think that we have these rules that we get so stuck in them, like there is and there isn't. And I wanted to present a video saying, hey, we really can have both answers. Maybe focusing on these exact rules are not the best thing to do. I mean, now there are rules that are commonly agreed upon. If we want to make a continuous form of something, we have to use to be and a present participle. I mean, that's just kind of an agreed upon rule. But yeah, I mean, what do you think? And I know I didn't put this in there, but I'm sure you can handle it. What do you think about rules in the language? How important is it to know the specifics of a rule, or to what extent should people be utilizing rules in their language learning?
I mean, so the issue, I think all of us English teachers are the problem that we're facing is that students want information quickly. And there a lot of, you know, the thing that I'm critiquing in my videos, and maybe I'm doing that a little bit more just because I'm focusing on content that's on Instagram or TikTok as opposed to YouTube. But it seems like a lot of students aren't really interested in the grammatical rules and the concept so much. So, but what they're interested in is believing that there's a rule and thinking that the creator is teaching you this secret or this hack or this rule that you have to follow. So actually, one thing I wanted to talk about when we get into the second part of this video and actually look at some reels is this kind of fear-based teaching that a lot of these creators put out. So this kind of idea of this is very wrong, this is very right. If you say this, you're going to sound stupid, you're going to sound not like a native speaker, you're going to be viewed as different. So I guess that's how I'd answer that question. I don't think a lot of learners are really interested in the deeper philosophical, historical kind of stuff. There are students out there who are interested, but the ones that I've encountered don't seem to be so much.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, and I think that, and that's fine. I mean, because I believe at the end of the day, it isn't about memorizing rules, it's about communicating. And whether you can communicate your point across accurately and clearly or not. I mean, that's what it is, which is why when a lot of these, I did a video about don't use idioms, and my whole idea about don't use idioms is don't use them if you don't know the context in which they belong. Okay, because a lot of people would do what I call, and I've mentioned this in a number of videos, a plug and play approach. They just take something out, switch a word, plug it in, and just think that that's it. But there can be cultural aspects or other aspects of it in which that word just seems off, or that idiom just seems off. So if you and I are talking and I said, okay, so let's start the interview, and you go, okay, let's get this party started. That would just sound weird to kind of just interject that right away, especially without any kind of enthusiasm or something like that. So, so let me, to build on that, let me ask you, talking about mistakes. Okay. So because we've really, and I think there is a history of this on YouTube. You had a lot of people making mistakes, both native and non-native speakers. Okay. And I think that's important to know. Then the English for Everyone channel came, and I will admit they specifically really were going after one channel. I mean, like 75% of their content is based on Lingua Marina, and that's it. But they have talked about others. And what happened is that those content creators before had this belief of what you just said, that, you have to say it this way. Don't make this mistake if you want to sound fluent and everything. But then they started changing their tone. They started making videos saying, oh, it's okay to make mistakes. Now, their content up to that point was, don't make these mistakes. And now, because they're being called out on a lot of it, it's now switching to, oh, make all these mistakes. So I want to ask you, what do you think, as far as looking at mistakes, how should we start looking at those? Not just, I guess, as teachers, but as students, the students out there listening, wanting to know about that, because yes, we as native speakers make mistakes, but there is a difference between if I say, yeah, he don't know anything, that just might fly over a native speaker's head. Whereas if I kept on saying, I'm going to store, I am buying pizza. Well, I am buying pizza. We can use that because it's but like if we constantly are missing articles, or we're not using the to be verb or whatever, those are mistakes that are significantly noticeable compared to the ones that could just not really be noticeable. So how do you think we should be looking at mistakes?
I think we have a right. I think anyone on the internet technically has a right to voice their opinion. So I think especially with content that's recorded and the creators practicing and they're editing after, and they're putting in all the money to make it look good, and they're selling their persona and everything. I think that type of content, I mean, that can be critiqued harshly. I know some people critique like live streams and things where maybe non-native English speakers will make mistakes and they're speaking very quickly. Maybe that might be slightly less fair, possibly, but definitely the content that looks really nice and is presented very professionally, but then there are terrible mistakes. I think that deserves a lot of criticism. And I did watch part of your video, and POC English, he kept saying how to sound like a Native American. Like that repeated mistake, it's just so shocking and just so insane that someone can present themselves in a certain way and say, oh, you're going to sound like an American speaker. I have an American accent. Let me teach you this. And then to say that, it's just, it's very unfortunate. And I think it deserves criticism. So I think making mistakes is part of being human, but I think native English speakers and all creators have a right to critique the work of others if they see mistakes are being made and they think that those mistakes can really harm learners. So I think that's why personally I'm doing it, because I'm seeing this content that's presented by people who are making mistakes, and they're also presenting themselves in a certain way in the comments. They're presenting themselves as authoritative figures without a shred of hesitation, thinking, oh, maybe I don't have this right. something that all of these creators do very well is present themselves very confidently. We could say a lot. There are creators out there who are very arrogant, and I think it's useful for them to know that these are the mistakes that we see as native English speakers, and we want people to know that these are mistakes and to not repeat them when they're speaking English.
Good. Yeah, because I'm I'm in the exact same boat as you when it comes to that. And I will say about that video, I think hopefully I have given some people a little bit more awareness about the Navajo Nation due to that video, because it was just like he kept on saying Native American to speak like a Native American, and it's just like an American would know not to say that.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, a Canadian would know how to say that. I mean, I think because I don't know, because in Canada, Canadians refer to First Nations, right? Compared to, I think we don't really say First Nations here. We say, Native Americans. So there's another terminology difference between Canadian and American English. Now let me, so I'll go ahead and finish this up here, because I want to talk about one thing that I think is starting to be, well, I think it's always been prevalent, and it's starting to become more prevalent. And you mentioned this in your videos, the critique videos that you've had, is, well, you talked about like advanced vocabulary. Now you have provided like short videos with advanced vocabulary, but like I always tell students, yes, this is more advanced, but it's something that you could hear on a daily basis. It's not out of the ordinary, but you do start seeing these channels that have advanced grammar techniques, advanced, well, not even grammar. I'll even say that, more advanced vocabulary, and saying that if you want to sound like a native English speaker, you need to have this extremely high level of vocabulary using these, again, esoteric words. And on top of that, there's this concept of you need to get rid of your accents, which is honestly, I think, the thing that has bothered me the most when it comes to a lot of these, that a lot of people are like, and my students will come to me and go, I want to get rid of my accents. Like, and I think there might be a confusion between pronunciation and accents. I do think that that's the case. And I tell students, I'm like, to me, I don't know what you think, but to me, an accent is a byproduct of your pronunciation and your cultural experience and everything like that. Like the way that I talk right now, and then the way you're talking to me, this is our default. This is not, if I try to speak like somebody from Vancouver, I would be straining myself to do that, right? I would not be speaking in a natural way. So therefore, the way I speak is a byproduct of somebody being raised in the Chicagoland area, and yours is a byproduct of being raised in BC, right? So how important do you think it is? Like, what do you think of these? Maybe not how important, but what do you think of these videos about reduce your accent? Don't speak with an accent. Learn these advanced vocabulary words. What do you think about those?
Yeah, so I think the accents are a touchy subject. And, I'm the daughter of an immigrant, and I've experienced what it's like for my dad having a really thick accent and the difficulties he's faced because of that. So I can totally understand the resistance that learners have. And honestly, it can be insulting for people to say you have to reduce your accent if you want to survive. So I'm very sympathetic to people who have accents, and they're frustrated because there are people who do not try to understand someone with a thick accent. And as a teacher, I can understand a lot of different accents, and I can try to help make sense of what someone is saying, but not everyone is so generous. So the problem, I think, with accents would be that it can create confusion. It can make it difficult for people to communicate. So my answer would be, I think people can reduce their accent if they choose to reduce their accent. So it is a personal choice. But I think being aware that if you have a very thick accent, it can create a lot of confusion. So if the point is to be able to convey trying to say, and for other people to understand you, it may be worth your time and energy to try to reduce your accent. And in the process of trying to reduce your accent, it will help you to understand what native English speakers are saying. So I might actually offer some content on accent reduction, but I think I'll always preface it by saying, if you want to reduce your accent, not that you necessarily have to. It's a choice in the end.
Yeah. And I think this goes to kind of what we were talking about before. You kind of mentioned it, this idea of, if you want, well, and I don't know how it works maybe in Canada compared to the United States with the whole Silicon Valley issue and stuff like that, because you have a lot of people want to come here to Silicon Valley. This whole idea is, if you want to succeed here, you need to get rid of your accent. And for me, my students, when they say that they want to reduce their accent, I ask them why. The number one answer is they don't want to sound stupid. It's like, it's not, and it has nothing to do with, you know, anything that we just talked about. They're like, we don't want to sound stupid. I go, trust me, it's not the way you pronounce, or the way you have the accent. It's not the way you pronounce it. It's what you say. Okay. What you say is going to make people think you're a lot dumber than, you know, if you make stupid remarks, then it doesn't matter if you have an American accent, people are going to think that. We've had a number of politicians in this country who have done that. So, and they've had American accents. So, yeah, I mean, and so I think that I guess this is my problem I have with the accent reduction, is this, you need to get rid of it, like you said, to survive. And then these students just like, well, I think that I sound stupid. And this is kind of really weird when it comes to grammar, because I still have a lot of students who, well, one particular student, she kept on using present perfect in situations that just required past simple. And I said, why do you keep using present perfect? And she goes, I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want people to always think that I'm using a simple tense, and that is it. I want to use perfect tense so they see that I know more tenses. But inadvertently, she was actually saying it the wrong way that made it sound incorrect. And it's like somebody has put so much pressure on that student. Though I've always said that I think the biggest problem is that somebody somewhere called it present simple, and people equate simple to easy, thinking that this is an easy way to say something. So therefore they think the perfect way is more complex and just think that. And I'm like, no, that's just the name of it. It could have just been called present Jim. Okay. It's just the name of it. All right. And just one last thing. So about vocabulary, because you've talked about that. What do you think about these? Because, and you mentioned this in your videos too, because you're like, yes, this is the correct word, but like nobody uses it, or it's very rarely used. So what do you think about a lot of this proliferation of advanced vocabulary videos?
I've been thinking a lot about it, because I have a lot of shorts, a lot of reels on Instagram, and I give a lot of different ways to say something, and I get a lot of comments from people asking, is this common? Is this common? Who says this? You know, things like a rhyming reduplication. So like if someone is snobby, they're hoity-toity, or if you're wasting time, you're dilly-dallying. And so people are confused, and it's hard to manage that, because it's hard to not only teach these things in 30 seconds to 60 seconds, but also to explain, oh, you say this here, and here's the subtle difference with this. That's a challenge. That's a challenge for all creators, I think. But I think there are some creators who are trying to offer too many different options, and I don't think they have good intentions always. So I think the stuff I'm putting out there, it's I'm giving people a lot of different ways to say something, because native English speakers speak in different ways. And all of the stuff that I teach, I've heard someone say, or I've said it myself. It might not be on a daily basis, but it's useful for people to know what those things mean. But some of the content out there, yeah, it's very random, and it's like, where did that person get that word or phrase from? So
and I find oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's it.
So I do find a lot of that has to come with maybe there's something that sounds similar in their language, and then they think that it's like that. But like there was this one video with the POC English, another one that I did where he talked about the word indolence. Like instead of saying you're very lazy, say you're indolent. I'm like, okay, yes, that's technically what it is, but like I've probably never said that word in my life. And like you said in the video, and I think it's important. You're like, I actually had to look this word up to see what it was because I don't know what it is. And that's the extent that it's getting to this extent of the ridiculous when it comes to a lot of these. So yeah. All right. So Evelyn, thank you very much for being here. Now, before we go ahead and, where can they find you on YouTube, Instagram, all your social media and everything? So go ahead.
Yeah, so you guys, Dave, thank you for inviting me. And we have a part 2. So we're actually going to be looking at 5 reels, and we're going to be discussing some of the problems that we see in these reels. You guys can check out my YouTube channel. I've got a lot of full-length videos on a lot of useful English content for you. I also have an Instagram page that you can check out, but it's better to go to YouTube. So thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. And thank you. And I have this feeling that within a few weeks, or maybe within a week, your subscriber count is going to surpass mine. So congratulations on being able to build this. And again, I think the work that we do to let people know about this, because there's just so much out there. It's just as important as telling, people what the rules are, how to say something. It's also good to tell people about the other stuff. So yeah.
For sure.
Awesome. So thank you very much. And everyone, thank you all very much. I will be seeing you all soon. And yes, go over to Evelyn's channel where we're going to do the second part of this video, or maybe it's the first part of this video. It depends on if you're watching her video first. But thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.